Yes, sir, we promised you a great main event here tonight.
Andre, the China WrestleMania!
Hulkamania is running wild.
My God, what a match! It's not the world is watching.
I am Lady Frost.
And I'm the Savage Gentleman, Victor Benjamin.
And we are Pretty Proper. And you're watching Top Guy Theater.
That was a great day, wasn't it? That was a fun day with the Savage Gentleman and Miss Lady Frost. I was at Big Time Wrestling last night to see the reunion of the Hardy Boys, and I was really hoping that they would be there because they have wrestled there. In fact, I believe one of the shows we watched was from their time at Big Time Wrestling. So, guys, by the time this drops, we're going to be the day before WrestleMania. And I'm really looking forward to WrestleMania. At the time of recording, I have no idea what the card's really going to look like. Is Cody Rhodes going to be there? Is he not going to be there? Whatever. But we have Jared Ledford here with us today. Another guy that I've been looking forward to connecting with as we've been on this journey the last couple of weeks of meeting new ad-free show members. And we have Devin today with us also, who was on a couple of weeks ago. God, was that more than a couple of weeks ago? It was maybe a couple of months ago. Well, whatever. So he's going to hear a lot about the awesome time we had in Nashville in December as we watched the Tennessee Titans defeat his San Francisco 49ers. Although the 49ers did wind up going further in the playoffs than Tennessee did, so I guess he's got that on me. So we're just going to get right into it, guys. We're watching In Your House 2. Of course, we're going to dote on Shawn Michaels and Jeff Jarrett a little bit tonight. And away we go. Hello, hey everybody. Good to see everyone. So it is peek behind the curtain. It's 6:53 p.m. on a Sunday here, and I'm not used to the fact that right now it's light out because we just changed our clocks last night. So first thing I wanted to ask is, Brandy, are we now 4 hours behind you or in front of you instead of 5?
Yes, you're still 4 hours because Alaska does honor daylight savings time.
All right, so wasn't it 5 for a while?
Nope.
No. Okay, I just get so confused. I'm so confused. Devin, remind me.
Everybody.
Devin, remind me where you are.
I'm up in Governor, New York.
Okay, so you're
about like 20 miles south of the Canadian border.
Oh, geez. Okay, so you could be Canadian. All right. Jared, buddy, how are you?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Where
for
are
having
you located? Me. You told me you're East Coast. Where are you?
So I live in Dayton, just outside Dayton, Ohio, in a little country town called Brookville. So I'm about 25 minutes from Dayton proper.
So Browns, Bengals, which one?
I'm a Bengals fan. Yeah, I'm a Bengals fan. So we were really happy to see them get as far as they did. I kind of root for the Titans a little bit. So that was a tough game for me to watch because I got a lot of friends that are Titans fans. So I was pulling for the Bengals, but it was a good year for us. So we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is with all the adversity Tennessee faced, I watched them get their asses handed to them in New England this season, and then we went to Nashville, and I believe they beat Devin's San Francisco 49ers. And I really expected with Henry coming back that I knew Burrow was going to be a problem, but I knew they could get to him because that offensive line was just bad. And they did 9 times. How do you sack the quarterback 9 times and still lose? But they found a way to do it. They found a way to break my heart. So
they'll be back, man.
Well, yeah, let's hope.
AFC Championship, Cincinnati, Tennessee next year.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
Excuse me, don't forget the Buffalo Bills will be in that AFC Championship.
I'm
Josh
sorry,
Allen-
3
Josh
teams
Allen's a
can't be a
freak,
part of
man.
a championship game, dude.
Whoa, wow. So, Phil, buddy, how you doing? We
Well,
haven't seen you in a couple weeks.
last time I was on here, because you guys did 2 episodes without me, I was about to sojourn out to a exclusive private getaway with my wife. And let me tell you guys, being a father for the last 14, 15 years, you would think, oh, they're going to go out and they're going to have lots of sex. Now, obviously, there was definitely sex, but the best part of this weekend getaway is we spent the majority of our time at our B&B binge watching television. You guys have no idea how difficult it is to watch a single 1-hour program straight through in a house with 6 children. We binge watched both seasons of Euphoria. I highly recommend that show.
Yeah, it was good.
And it was epic. We went out to dinner a couple times. We had sex more than a couple of times. We watched all of Euphoria. It was glorious. But I'm happy to be back.
Did Euphoria get the blood flowing? Because that is a very
I will tell you right now, I have never seen in any show, including porn, in my entire life, more penises than I have in Euphoria.
Well, there was
Every
that one.
episode.
There was that one episode. The one that sticks out in my mind, I think it was like episode 1 or 2 of season 2, where like there was like dick everywhere. Like,
You're talking about the flashback episode?
Yeah, where she was.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
That kid sits down on the toilet and just opens his legs, and I'm like, what is going on?
By the way, literally almost everyone in that show is apparently hung like a horse too.
Oh yeah. That's not realistic. Not realistic.
So if you guys like shows about penises and also a great drama-filled show, Euphoria is it.
See, now Conrad talks about getting into the weeds. We just got into the ween, so we gotta chill. Let's go to Michael real quick. Michael, how you doing? Are you writing that down as an edit point?
I am doing fantastic, Jared. Glad you're here. And we might be watching in your house, but tonight you are in my office because I have spent the day. It's the busy season for me as a CPA, so working on audits, but love taking a break to catch up with you guys and watch some good old school 1995 WWF.
Oh yeah. Devin, brother, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad. You're talking about the Niners losing to the Titans, but hey, we got to the championship game.
I know you did.
I didn't see you guys in the AFC championship game.
But see, Garoppolo did exactly what Tannehill did.
Hey, Jimmy's my guy.
Throw an interception in one of the most crucial points of the. Tannehill did it 3 times, but I was actually really hoping for the 49ers. I really was, because that the Rams.
I appreciate that.
The Rams still are on my shit list from 22 years ago in Super Bowl 34. So, all right. So I digress. Jared, we're gonna have a lot of questions for you, but what we want to do is we're gonna watch the entire In Your House show. It's under 2 hours. It's right in our wheelhouse. So, everyone go to the cock, and we're gonna go to. Oh, please don't play. This thing's gonna play right now. I know it is. But start playing. So it's season 1. Episode 2 of In Your House, and it's pretty much in there labeled as In Your House 2. So let me know when everyone's there.
I've been there for about 2 hours.
That's what she said. Jared, how about you? You there?
I'm getting there right now. Yes,
all
sir.
Right, yeah. Devin, you good? Yeah. Why are you muting yourself? You don't have to mute yourself.
My fiance keeps sneezing over here, so every time she's like grabbing a tissue, I'm like, "Oh crap! I'm gonna mute this before she gets too loud."
Wait, she doesn't have the COVID, does she?
No. Just the new, spring season, all the salts in there because we just got hit with another freaking snowstorm. So.
Yep, we did too. Yeah, we got. It was pouring rain all day yesterday. We get to big time wrestling and it starts snowing.
Yeah,
Jared, you good?
Here.
Yes, sir. I'm good.
All right, we're going to let you do the countdown, man. So if everyone's ready, hit it, Jared.
We starting right at 00? I'm sorry.
Yeah, all zeros, yep.
Okay.
Let me get my. Oh. All right, cool. So we'll go in 3, 2, 1, go.
The World Wrestling Federation, for over 50 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment.
Well, even the rat race, heading for the country. On my Chevy pickup with a pinch for my honey. Drive on down to Nashville, listen to my radio. Come on, baby, gonna head out to the dance hall, make a little noise. Gonna crank up the band, make some music with the boys. Double J is gonna be singing Dora's Baby tonight. Look out in your house. We're in your house tonight. We're coming in your house. Gonna polish up my boots and raise the roof all night. In your house. In your house tonight. Here we come in your house. I'm up in the saddle, king up on the ground.
Nashville Municipal Auditorium. So,
and if you were watching us on screen, that was exactly what our trip to Nashville looked like in December.
I completely blanked that intro out of my mind years ago. I remember why. Good Lord, what the hell did we just watch?
I mean, it's the 90s for you, man.
It was the 90s. It was country music. It was not great lyrically, but the beat was good.
Sounded like an opening to a sitcom, honestly. It sounded like like one of those sitcom openings where everybody'd be dancing in the
Oh my God, Jerry the King Lawler's wearing a cowboy hat with a crown on it.
What's the crown? Epic.
So, Jared, I want to ask you, why did you choose this show?
Well, this was probably the start of what became my ad-free journey, was this pay-per-view, because this was the very first pay-per-view that we ever ordered at my house. And I remember it vividly, like it was yesterday, getting the weird cable box for the first time, making that phone call, convincing mom to order it. And I can't remember if they were $10 or $20, but it was because they were cheap.
$14.95 at this point. Price point was $14.95.
Yeah, they were cheap. They were cheap. And
I've got a whole cash course on them.
Yeah. This was my first ever personally watched pay-per-view at my house, and it was in your house too. And
what was
my mom was really into country music, so obviously Double J was her favorite wrestler, and that kind of got passed down. So here we are.
So I want to piggyback off that, if I may. Was your mom a big wrestling fan?
That sounded very sexual.
It was my grandma on my dad's side that was a wrestling fan. NWA, JCP, into WCW. We were big WCW fans. Obviously we were WWF fans too, but we preferred WCW even through the garbage. So of the almost at the end, and I can remember watching some of the really bad stuff in like the early 90s with my grandma. She was one of those Southern people in Kentucky that literally, every Saturday night had to watch wrestling. And that was just what she did. That was one thing that was like on her weekly schedule. So it was passed down, and here I am all these years later getting to talk about it with you guys. So
I love that story.
Right?
I love that story, and I love that story because my grandmother, before I met all of you through ad-free shows, she was like my wrestling person. She was into it years ago with her father, like years and years ago, and then she kind of got out of it. And then she just happened to buy me, because she always used to buy me video games. And one day I just saw this SmackDown versus Raw 2007 video game that I thought looked really interesting. So that was the start of my wrestling journey, and she was a very big part of it. So I love your story, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Speaking of video games, WWE 2K22 came out a couple days ago as we record this. It is, I will tell you, I stopped playing WWE games back in 2K17 with a glitch completely ruined my whole season. And everyone knows what the clusterfuck of 2K20 was. I didn't play that either. 2K22 is the exact opposite spectrum of that. It is a magnificent game. Definitely not getting paid by WWE for this, although I wish they would. But you guys, if you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. I'm actually thinking about, and let me know. Send me a tweet or a DM or email or snail mail. I'm thinking about twitching some gameplay of that. So let me know what you guys think.
Do you have your own Twitch? Do you have your own Twitch, Phil, or are you going to use Top Guy Theaters?
Well, of course I'm going to use Top Guy Theaters. Why would I use my own shit?
All right. I didn't know if you had your own Twitch. I'm just saying.
I've never Twitched before in my life, sir.
See, this is where I feel old because it's even at the show last night, like at some point it was so fucking loud and I'm like, God, can these people stop screaming? But I get why they were screaming. And it was a small venue. It was a town hall in Webster, Massachusetts. So like obviously the audio it was so loud.
Did you guys see that kick to the face over the top rope that he just did?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was nuts.
Well, so speaking of making Frank feel old, let me ask you, Jared. This pay-per-view took place in 1995. Do you happen to know the month and the date?
I do not. I want to say it was summer. Summer of 1995? July, okay.
July of 95. I don't know the exact date. I want to say
yeah, I was
July.
Say I was not
in the chat.
I was not.
Oh, thank you. So let's see. July 23rd. Oh, that's wonderful. Do you know what that was? That was 7 days before I was even born, because I was born on July 30th, 1995.
All right, you need to just go. I've told you this a million times, Mike, but just go fuck yourself, okay? So, Devin, how old were you on July 23rd, 1995? Probably not born yet either, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, still 2.5 years before I was born.
Yeah, you can go.
Oh, God, you make me
right?
feel old.
What's your fiance eating there? It looked good. What is that? Or is that tissues?
That's salt and vinegar popcorn.
Hi, fiance. Congratulations. I don't think you guys were engaged the last time we spoke.
She can't hear you because I have a headphone in. But
okay, well, tell her I said
congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah, congrats, Devin. That's wonderful.
Devin, do you guys have a date set?
Yep, we've already chose. It's going to be October 7th, 2023.
All right, so keep that in mind because October 8th, 2023, you'll no longer get good sex. It will be mediocre sex.
Oh my God! Don't say that to him. I mean,
Bazinga.
We're gonna be on our honeymoon October 8th. So
so
let me see.
Phil.
That's an edit point.
Jared's writing down notes, going, "I will never do this again."
Oh no, I love the open concept. I don't like a format. So wherever we go, I'll travel with you guys. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a small like things we read off of, but like it is definitely free for long. We just let the conversation go where it goes, and sometimes we wind up talking about the show we're watching. I mean,
sometimes we get way off into the weeds, but sometimes those are our best shows.
I'll tell you what. I wanted those pants so bad that the roadie has on right there. I thought those pants were just everything. I wanted that shirt. I wanted it all right there because this is 7 years old for me. So this is prime time young Jared, who's already a Jeff Jarrett fan because mom liked him and mom liked the heels, and they were different. I mean, honestly, they were. Jeff Jarrett and the roadie were different. They were just a little bit different than what WWF was doing at that time. And they had a lot of heat. They were bastards. I mean, that's just all there was to it. And Shawn Michaels was so over right now. I mean, he was so popular. So, I mean, it was if they could have did a series of matches here and then eventually worked off, we've heard a lot from Jeff on that on the podcast about the storyline that never happened between him and Road Dogg.
Yep.
And man, I think there was quite a story there. Road Dogg would have came out of that with some serious face credentials on that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And Road Dogg was one of those ones that I always rooted for and liked. I wasn't a super fan of him. Shawn Michaels, as well documented on this show, is my guy. I loved him in the Rockers. I loved him in the mid card, and I was there when he was. Oh God! Don't put that out! Stop! No, you don't do that to people that barely know us, Phil.
Wait.
So
Jared, I did that.
Jared, just for context, now that he's going to vomit when this is over. I really wish I hadn't done this. This is another note to himself. There was this big thing with Mike Kolb. I don't know if you know him, But he sent my father the Shawn Michaels Playgirl. He literally bought it and then sent it to my father. So then it was, Frank, would you ever recreate that picture? And I said, I would do it if we raised enough money and sent it to the Jimmy Fund here in Boston.
And they had to buy you the belt.
Oh, and they had to buy me the belt. So they bought me the belt, and we raised like $600 for pediatric cancer. So I did it.
That's
and now
good stuff, man.
I mean, now it's a running joke on here, and I'm embarrassed, but every once in a while, like Eddie Prather will be on here, and I'll just throw it up there to probably stop him from spewing what he spews. So
we love Eddie.
We do love Eddie, yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention was how underrated do you think at this point in time, underrated, underappreciated 123 Kid was?
Pretty underrated. He was on it seemed like every opening match was either him or a combination of him and like Savio Vega.
Yeah.
Razor, shout out to Scott Hall right now, who's having a bad way, but I mean he's going to be out here in a little bit, and it's going to be peak Razor on this pay-per-view. And I don't know that there was a better, probably 3 or 4 guys, maybe Waltman, Scott Hall, Savio Vega, Shawn Michaels, Jeff Jarrett. That was a really good run they had of new generation guys. They could put on a good wrestling show and really started to cut some pretty good promos too.
And I think that's something that's important is I think the 95, 96 era of WWF often gets heavily criticized for being not as entertaining as the Attitude Era. But when you look at like what we're saying right now, this really was an excellent product at the time.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we're what? This is 8 or 9 minutes. Yeah. This is the finish right here, I think.
I completely forgot about that. He did a second rope pile driver.
That scared the shit out of me just watching it.
I mean,
they did an angle where Waltman got hurt with something like that for a little while. They did an angle of that. I can't remember if it was before or after this, but that was kind of a running storyline within itself, was Waltman having a bad neck.
So was this your peak fandom, Jared, or was this the start of your fandom, or where were you at here?
This was when it really started going and ticking uphill, and I don't know that it's ever really stopped from here.
That's awesome.
So we live in Dayton, and our home venue was Hara Arena. So there was a lot. I mean, that was WCW territory, but when ECW started traveling, we got to go to a couple of ECW pay-per-views, which were awesome. And
wait a minute.
This is the pay-per-view that started it all for me.
Jared, hang on a second. Were you at the show?
Yes.
Devon and
Bubba. Heatwave 99. Heatwave 99. That was the first time ever that my mom actually had to take me out of that place. It was so crazy. I mean the clip's out there, so it's on it's on the ECW the documentary DVD that WWE did 10-15 years ago.
I have that DVD. They actually played it.
I think in a second here we're gonna need to track it. We got the song of all songs.
Yeah, it's right here.
Here it comes.
Oh yeah, we should track it then.
We'll give it a minute for our man to show up out here.
Well, the roadie's doing his job. He's making sure the band is ready. He's making sure all the equipment is working.
I'm not excited anymore.
Oh, there's Sid. Remember, I want to do that again. We're live, B.
Dallas Corporation.
So, I mean, what was the crowd like when he said that?
It was ridiculous. I mean, okay, so Hera had tough man contests that my mom would never let me go to, where people just literally got drunk and beat the crap out of each other. ECW was nuts, but I think we had been once or twice before that. And this was crazy. I mean, it was just insane. The crowd was so hot. It was ridiculous. It was probably just like when you see these modern GCW pay-per-views where things get out of control. It was something like that. I mean, I was probably, I guess I would have been 11, 10 or 11 years old at that time. And mom had never seen, I don't know that she had ever seen anything quite like that from wrestling. That was when everything for me started to change a little bit, because she started to monitor the product I watched. I mean,
at 11 years old, because I was So you were 7 in 95, so that means you were
Yeah.
born in 88. So I'm 8
Yeah,
years older than you.
July of 88.
Yeah, I'm August of July what?
12th.
Okay,
All right,
stop looking at Sid's face now.
Oh yeah, look at those eyes. He's
Ooh,
like, I
look
gotta
at
play
that.
softball today.
Sid,
what's funny, Jared?
Yeah, Phil.
Oh my.
Phil's just looking trying to take a shit, but yeah, I was 19 at the time, and even I was like actually 18. Even I'm watching it live, and we're all our friends, and we all went, and we're like, you think about it, we're like horny 18-year-old guys.
If I call that number right now, what do you think will happen?
It's no longer active.
1-800. What was it? Titan
91.
All right, TITAN 91. Here we go.
So we've talked about the start of your wrestling
but
fandom.
this program has ended and no further calls are being taken.
Oh, I wanted that shirt.
Wow.
What the hell were you expecting?
If you want a shirt, go check out our Top Guy Theater Pro Wrestling Tee store.
Oh my god, yeah.
I gotta... Here we go.
King, is this? Oh, that's the King, yeah. That's the King. This is the month before he almost killed Diesel.
Oh God.
So yeah, I can't talk all of a sudden.
It's okay.
Do you want to do map it real quick, Brandy?
Sure.
All right. You get his open. So here we go.
Yo ho ho!
Hey!
Blow me down!
Na 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 na.
332 T-Hawk, USS T-Hawk. This is Namcom State Dr. Roger, over.
That's right. We're doing things a little bit differently this time, standing in for our Map It man, Henry. And we are, of course, coming to you for this show from the Nashville Municipal Auditorium, which is a storied building in the history of professional wrestling. It's been home to so many events, like the NWA WCW Wrestle War 89, which would see Ric Flair defeat Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in the final of their trilogy for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. It was the home of Starrcade's 94, 95, 96, and the final WCW Clash of the Champions Clash 35, Super Brawl Revenge, which was the penultimate WCW pay-per-view. It was also the home of No Holds Barred, The Match, the movie, which aired on December 27th, 1989. The match, of course, was pre-filmed, but this is where the actual, showing of it was. Masato Tanaka would win his first and only ECW World Heavyweight Championship at an ECW on TNN taping. He would hold that championship for 6 days before losing it to Mike Awesome at a TV taping in White Plains, New York. It was also the home of NWA TNA's first couple of weekly pay-per-views in June of 2002 prior to moving to the Tennessee State Fairgrounds. It was also home to TNA Slammiversary 2007 and Lockdown 2012.
Hey, Brandy.
Yes.
Real quick, it was also the location of Dynamite a couple weeks ago.
That is very true. So obviously still standing and very much in use. Nashville is the city that is home to the NFL's Tennessee Titans.
Woo, yeah!
Who began their life as in Houston, Texas, as the Oilers on August 3rd, 1959. The Oilers were founded by Bud Adams, an oil magnate from the state of Oklahoma, and began to play in the American Football League in 1960. This team, along with 9 others, teams representing New York City, Buffalo, Boston, Denver, Kansas City, San Diego/Los Angeles, Miami, Cincinnati, and Oakland/Los Angeles/Las Vegas, would join the 13-team NFL when the two leagues merged in 1970. The Oilers would play in Houston until 1996, when at the end of the season the team moved to Tennessee, where it would play the 97 season in Memphis and the 98 season in Nashville as the Tennessee Oilers,
Yep,
until the team adopted the Titans nickname in 1999, and then NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue retired the Oilers name for good. The franchise won 2 AFL championships in Houston, 1960 and 61, and was the runner-up to the Dallas Texans, now known as the Kansas City Chiefs, in 1962, but would not see a championship game until 1999, their first season in Nashville as the Titans. Bud Adams would pass away on October 21st, 2013 at the age of 90, and at the time of his death was one of only 2 owners in the NFL who still owned their AFL franchise. A group of men called the Foolish Club of the other 2 who were alive at the time of Adams' death, Baron Hilton, founder of Los Angeles Chargers and a major player in the Hilton hotel chain, was forced to divest his interest in the Chargers in 1996 in order to save his stake in the hotel chain. He would pass away in 2019. The other was Ralph C. Wilson Jr., who was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2009, founded the Buffalo Bills on October 28, 1959, and would be their sole owner. Until his death at the age of 95 on March 25, 2014. Unlike the Titans, who remained in the Adams family, the then Buffalo Bills were placed into a trust upon his death and were sold at an estate sale for a then record $1.4 billion to Buffalo Sabres owner Terry Pegula and his wife Kim, in a sale that was formally approved by the owners on October 10, 2014. The proceeds from the sale of the Bills to the Pegulas would go into a trust to be donated for 20 years to various charities in the city of Detroit, where Wilson was born and grew up, and in Western New York. While Henry personally detests Bud Adams as a person, he does believe that the contributions to the sport of professional football merit him a place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we hope to see him inducted someday. And on the other channel, WCW would hold WCW Bash at the Beach 1995 from the fucking beach in Huntington Beach, California. The main event would see Hulk Hogan defeat Vader in a steel cage match for the WCW World title. The 1995 and 98 Bash at the Beach pay-per-views were the only ones held outside of the state of Florida, which of course brings us back to the Municipal Auditorium in good old Nashville, where we see King Mabel and Sir Mo decimating Savio Vega. And our good friend, Mike Chioda, is also in the ring.
I was going to say Chioda's a very young and sprout Chioda. Now, one thing I want to say about Henry's Map, it was he has no reason to personally detest Bud Adams, other than the fact that he's still very angry at what the Tennessee Titans were able to do to the Buffalo Bills, sending them on 20 years of being mediocre. But Tennessee spent a good 10 years on this as the bottom feeders in the NFL. We're going to get away from NFL talk. I personally, it's March. I need a fucking break. It's going to go crazy on Wednesday with free agency because that's,
Are we getting live Twitter notifications because Tom Brady just unretired about 10 minutes ago?
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah, right at the start of Map It, my phone started doing nuts tricks on the table here. So apparently Tom Brady, these past 2 months, I've realized my place is still on the field, not in the stands. That time will come, but it's not now. I love my teammates. I love my supportive family. They will make it all possible. I'm coming back for my 23rd season in Tampa. Unfinished business. Signed, Tom Brady.
It sounds like you need your house. In your house, 23. Unfinished business, pal.
So what that means, everybody that knows me, that the rumor and innuendo over the past couple of days is that Rob Gronkowski wanted to go to Nashville. Well, his boy just came back, so Rob Gronkowski is now going to be in Tampa again.
I got a question. Is the McMahon family now booking the NFL? Because this is crazy.
Well, when he retired, this was under immense pressure from his wife. During the last, oh God, how old are their kids now? Probably 7 to 9 years. Her career as a model, because before she met and married Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, of course, is a very successful commercial model, Victoria's Secret angel. Her career in the last decade has really taken a back seat to his. And unfortunately, not only does she suffer with being the only parent in the home with the children, he's not always going to be around for things like holidays, taking the kids to hockey practice and football practice. And so there was a lot of pressure from Gisele on Tom to step back now before he becomes physically unable to be part of his children's lives and be part of more things with the family. But unfortunately, seems football wins over family still.
Okay, so I have a wrestling related question for this, and it's an interesting thought. Is Tom Brady the Undertaker of the NFL?
Yes.
In that there's so many times you think he's done of all time, and then it ends up he's got one more run in him.
No comment?
No,
I would
he's the Undertaker of the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a respectful way, not as a dig towards anybody. I just thought it was an excellent analogy.
No, it is an excellent analogy. I'm happy to see him still playing because as we saw in this last season, he can still play at a very high level.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm not happy to see? Mo wrestling in the ring because he's fucking god awful.
Both Mo and Mabel were quite frankly terrible.
I'll give Mabel a little bit more credit. Mo just slipped in there one day because he happened to be in an elevator with Vince McMahon. That's how he got in. But Mabel, he lasted. He went through the Viscera and the Big V and the Lily Garcia love story and
the giant pajamas,
all that fun stuff. But he had something going for him. Mo was just fucking Mo.
My favorite music of Viscera's was the world's largest love machine.
Does anybody have a favorit Mo match?
I liked his Big Daddy. I actually liked his Big Daddy.
Whenever was his last match is my favorite.
I think it was probably this one. I think that's Bruce's favorite comment. It was this one right here.
Let me tell you a quick one of my favorite Mo moments, and it was at the back in the mid 90s, late 90s. Actually, the WWF did this from like 1990 till the place closed in 1999. But they would come to the Warwick Musical Theater, which was legitimately 45 minutes up the road from me. And in fact, very close to where I work now. And it was just it was an amphitheater. But they called it the tent because for the longest time it had a tent over as a roof. It was really weird. So Mabel was wrestling the Undertaker at this show, and of course Mo was there with him. And the thing about Warwick Musical Theater is it was meant to be for bands and stuff. So it had a whole orchestra pit. And the ring was always positioned on this big circle that if you wanted to, it would rotate. Obviously, they didn't rotate it during the show, but this orchestra pit was deep, and Undertaker decked Mo, and Mo didn't realize it and fell into the orchestra pit.
Was that a stage spot or was that an accident?
It was an accident because what happened was Undertaker decked him. He hit the apron, rolled onto the floor, but the floor is on this elevated stage. So he went to roll again, and all of a sudden you see his legs flinch and his arms go like this, and he falls into the orchestra pit.
That's crazy. That's interesting.
Razor just takes the L to Big Vis to King Mabel, whatever you want.
Yeah, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this would be them pushing him toward being a strong opponent as a main eventer to Diesel the next.
I don't think Mo had much time left here. I'll be honest with you. I don't really remember much tag action much longer after this. They were looking for Mabel to be a focal point.
Yeah, because he's going to win the King of the Ring next month.
No, he already won the King of the Ring.
He won it already.
He already won the King of the Ring. That was the pay-per-view prior to
last month. Yep.
Oh.
And I remember reading The Observer for my notes, and Dave Meltzer called it, quote, disastrous, and quite possibly the worst WWF pay-per-view in a long time. It was a show that ended like 10 to 12 minutes early.
Is this it? Is this Double J's? Are we right? Is this it? Or is this more tuning up?
Time?
Let's see. I'm not sure.
I mean, Todd Pettin goes out there doing something.
Yeah, how great was it to see when they brought the In Your House back for NXT, which I thought was excellent. How great was it to see them get Todd Pettin involved again?
That was awesome. I loved seeing him again.
I think he's underrated. I don't think he's remembered as well as he should be. He was a big part of their programming for a long time. He should get more credit than he gets.
Do you believe that he was? Because I completely agree with you. Do you believe that he was kind of, had Michael Cole not come into the WWE, that he would have had a larger role? Because everybody kind of believes that Michael Cole was the one that, not intentionally, but Vince McMahon saw more in Michael Cole than he did.
I feel like Todd Penningill's more of a hype man. He's got kind of a Don West vibe more than a Michael Cole. He's not really a play-by-play guy to me. He's more going to be hyping up an event. He can come in and kind of do these kind of one-offs, like as we got Doc Hendricks here.
I was about to say he's in the heel locker room, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Adam Bomb and Bam Bam are good guys at this point in time, and poor Max Payne over here is the Man Mountain Rock.
Man Mountain Rock.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. My phone disconnected from my Wi-Fi for some reason.
We are the show of technical difficulties. It's okay.
That's what we're here for.
Is it crazy that Billy Gunn is still wrestling at this point?
Yeah,
still looking as stacked as he is.
Hey, you got that wrong.
He just won a title last night.
Yeah. Billy Ass and the Ass Boys. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Yes, Billy Ass and the Ass Boys won last night at New South Pro Wrestling. Billy Ass is your New South Pro Heavyweight Champion, and the Ass Boys are the New South Pro Tag Team Champions.
So proud of the Ass Boys.
Who had that on their bingo card? Billy Ass being Heavyweight Champion in 2022.
How cool is it to see people like that? Like, I just think this is so neat because as we're starting to see the different generations here, you look at people like a Billy Gunn that can now help his sons get into the business. You see it with Arn and Brock Anderson. I just think that's a really underappreciated aspect of the current product.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What I think was awesome is before he agreed to bring his sons into the business, they had to finish college first.
And Brock Anderson was the same way.
Finish developing first, because quite famously in medical studies, the brain doesn't finish developing until you're 25.
I believe it is time.
I think for me it was 35. I'm just saying.
Here we go. Let's see what Rhodey's saying here.
Jeff Jarrett. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you have to wonder whether or not there are any butterflies in the stomach of Double J, Jeff Jarrett. A lot of pressure he puts on himself here, performing live in his hometown here in Nashville.
McMahon, he is a seasoned professional. Behind that mic, there's nobody better. Right now, Garth Brooks, he's shaking in his boots. Kenny Rogers, he's thinking it's time to fold them. All of these so-called country stars are worried to death. They're hopeless.
Hello, folks. Double J here. Listen to this. That's J-E, double M. J-A, double R-E, double T. That's Double J, Jeff Jarrett. The world's greatest singer.
Maybe.
The world's greatest entertainer.
Without a doubt.
And you're going to find out in a little while, the world's greatest wrestler.
Right up there with me, McMahon, I'm telling you.
Hi, huh? You know, from day one in the World Wrestling Federation, I told everybody I was going to use the WWF, and that is exactly what I've done. I have soared straight to the top, and I wear the Intercontinental title around my waist proudly. And I also, like I said I was going to do, I've got a hit single out right now, Back With My Baby Tonight. You know, Buddy Lee and everybody else over on Music Row, and as far as that goes, everybody in this building tonight didn't think old Double J, didn't think Jeff Jarrett had the talent to make it as a country music star. Well, I proved everybody wrong.
That's right, buddy.
I proved everybody wrong. So after I get done singing my song, I want everybody to march up to the concession stand and get a big serving of crow, because that's exactly what you deserve. Boys, are y'all ready?
Are you ready,
Road
McMahon?
Dogg, you got everything in place?
I'm ready. I'm really looking forward to this.
You're nervous. Admit it.
Me? I'm nervous?
Yeah, you gotta be.
Now, don't you forget.
You're gonna have egg all over your face.
J-E-double-F. J-A-double-R-E-double-T.
Well, he
That's
can
double
sing.
J, Jeff Jarrett.
And he
the
can
world's
spell.
greatest entertainer, the world's greatest wrestler, and you're fixing to find out the world's greatest singer.
Whoa!
All right, here we go. Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Can he pull it off? Can he bring the house down?
Spending my days working hard on the go. Put the hands on the clock, keep spinning too slow.
What do you think?
I can't wait to be alone with my baby tonight. You know my baby's got me wrapped around her little finger, 'cause she knows that I will walk through hell and back to be with her. I can't wait to be alone with my baby tonight. Turn the lights off, you will leave all the worries of the world behind. Only in your arms, maybe it's true, I've got a one-track mind, but it's hard to concentrate around a girl like mine. I can't wait to be alone with my baby tonight.
I'm impressed.
Gotta be.
All right, bring out all the guitar.
So you won't mind me complaining if you take so night. Baby, what we're doing might be wrong. How in the world could we be wrong? Take so long. Well, I wake up in her arms with the sunlight peeking through the curtains of my room, and there's just one thing I'm thinking. I can't wait to be alone with my baby tonight. Don't you know I'm in my mind when I think about being with my baby tonight?
Wow, we been rocking.
Turn the lights on, you need everywhere in this world tonight. Peeking through the curtains of our room, and I swear that all I'm thinking is I can't wait to be alone with my baby tonight. You know that I lose my mind when I think about being with my baby tonight. I can't wait to be alone with my baby. I can't wait to be alone with my baby.
It's country music Hall of Fame film, McMahon.
I don't know about you guys, but I thought Double J did G double E A double R double T great.
I'm fully sexually satisfied.
Did you realize what the fuck you were spelling there? That was not the word great.
He was saying great like Lee Marshall. We're gonna
Did I really misspell that?
I don't know
Yes.
what you look. You can do
Great
accounting.
is
but you can't spell.
Great.
I don't know what you were saying, but
you know, when I was a kid,
well, Brandy, this is just for you. I thought he did wonderful.
When I was a kid, when I watched that, I actually, until, you know, it came out that he was lip syncing Double J left, I actually had a modicum of respect for Jeff Jarrett when I saw him in the ring. I'm like, you know what? He never lied to us. Look at him. He had been telling the truth. He's a fucking heel, but that man can sing. And then my heart was crushed because he was faking it.
You know,
I would have made him that much more a heel, in my opinion.
I knew it. I shouldn't have believed it.
You know, I actually have a question that I think would be interesting for us all to think about, because during this time period of 1995, 1996, even 97, and a little bit in 2000, you could say that Jeff Jarrett had an exceptional career, and My World is one of my favorite podcasts on ad-free shows. But I'm just curious, had he not gone to WCW and WWF and kind of flip-flopped a little bit, which the reasons are well documented why he did on the My World show, do you think he would have eventually had a reign as WWF champion? And what do you think that reign could have looked like? I personally think it could have happened at some point.
No, I think had he stayed, Diesel and Razor would have left, but it would have. You still had Sean, Brett, Taker. They'd have put it on them first. Honestly, I think Jarrett would have always been. He could have contended for it, but I don't think they would have ever put it on him. And Jared, what do you think about that?
I think there's a good chance, just because we've heard the rundown of the heels they had at that time. If he would have stayed this time and not left until after the NWO and all of that, if he had left and just did the single run, I think he could have gotten the belt here. I think if there would have been no issues whatsoever, he would have gotten the championship somewhere 95, 96. There would have been no way. Once the Attitude Era started to break in, he would have been mitigated to the mid card for sure. But he had a solid run in the Attitude Era too. I mean, tag champion, Intercontinental champion. I just think he was destined for WCW. And it's too bad that it ended up the way it ended up, because some of that stuff that they were doing over there was not half bad. When you look back at it and really do a deep dive on like 1999, 2000 into the closing of WCW, it's not as bad as people think it is. It's like TNA, WTF. A lot of that old TNA stuff is awesome stuff. And when you guys asked me to do this, I almost picked Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle. Any of their matches were good. They had
those were exceptional in TNA. Let's talk about TNA for a second, if you guys don't mind, because it seems like, Jared, you were a fan. What did you think of the TNA promotion overall, and what years for you were your favorite of the TNA promotion, or the time period that stands out to you? Because for me, it was honestly the Hogan Bischoff era, but the era you're talking about with the Jeff and Kurt Angle, the 2010 to 2012. I watched
even a little earlier than that. I think I'm not exactly sure the date when Angle came in, but they were white hot.
06. It was like late 06.
They feuded with Samoa Joe, and they had their best. I think they had their best run of in-ring product period around that time, when Jarrett stepped away and left the promotion for a while. He had been on top for so long, and I think people were just tired of it. Yeah, for Angle to come in and legitimize them the way he did, and have the series of matches with Samoa Joe that he had, and the whole time you had guys like AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels really bringing up the in-ring product. I mean, watching it now, so I'm a big Impact Plus fan, and if you have like Pluto TV, they have the Impact channel, and they just run TNA, like old school TNA, like 24/7. And I'll tell you, that's one of the channels I circle back to more often than not, because it's stuff that I don't even remember seeing. And I was watching a lot of that stuff. Some of the matches are just, some of the people that went through there, Punk went through there, Raven, a lot of these, early TNA pay-per-views are really solid stuff. They did a watch along on ad-free shows for TNA 1, and where Shamrock won the NWA title, and Scott Hall was there. And I mean, just so many people came through TNA's door, and I mean, I really wish they would have got a better run at it. And it's, when Hogan and Bischoff came in, I think the writing was on the wall that it was pretty much going to be over with, in my opinion.
What were your thoughts on them coming in? I know that's a kind of
it ruined it for me. I mean, I was somebody who had been to TNA. I think 2 times live in person. Now, I saw Angle wrestle Ken Kennedy in Troy in front of about 200 people, and they wrestled for about 20 minutes, and they both put on a heck of a show. I actually asked Kurt that question when we were at Top Guys Weekend. That was the one question I wanted to ask everybody that was there, because I had met Kurt. You know, they used to do the $50 VIP.
Oh yeah.
Where you get to go, you know, you pay $50 and you get to go outside and meet everybody. Well, we had ringside tickets because I was watching, you know, as soon as they went on sale, I had tickets. So I was ringside anyway. So we were there early. So we had hung out with a lot of the guys, Abyss and Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle. I mean, they were just outside hanging out. And it just had that vibe of that really small independent, but also all of these big, you know, Kurt Angle's wrestled in front of thousands and thousands of people. Jarrett's wrestled in front of thousands and thousands of people. It's not an independent show. It doesn't feel that way, but the vibe backstage felt that way. And I think when Bischoff and Hogan came in, it was just trying to rehash something that had already been done before. Mm-hmm. And they got faction heavy, and they tried to do that Immortal versus TNA.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. I thought having Hogan turn... To me, the worst storyline in TNA, and I know this is a little sidebar, but it ties into what we're talking about, is the Hogan heel turn only to turn face a year later. Yeah. I thought that made almost... I know why they did it to have the match, but I will say, as somebody that actually purchased all the TNA pay-per-views during that time frame, I was very dissatisfied with the payoff for that. But I thought it was very interesting. And I did want to ask one question of something you said there when you said Kurt Angle legitimized TNA, and I don't think anybody would dispute that. And I want to, before I say the question, I want to kind of preface it before you just laugh at what I'm going to say. Think about it for a second in terms of scale, because in terms of dollar amount, the question is going to sound ridiculous. But what do you think was a better legitimizer? Honest question. Hogan signing with WCW in 1994 or Angle signing with TNA in 2006? What do you think legitimized the company more?
Percentage-wise, it has to be Hogan.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Percentage-wise was definitely Hogan, but from an overall taking something out of the dark and kind of shedding light on it, what do you think was better?
I still think it's probably Hogan. As much as I love Angle, I mean, the way that they were able to take Hogan coming in on a Saturday night in a 6:05 Saturday night time slot that was pretty much probably on the axe as it was, to turn that into a year and a half later, probably not even that long. The concept was earlier than that, but to turn that into Nitro, I mean, for Eric to have that vision to see that, you know, if we get these guys on Monday night, we can compete and get it out to a more global audience. That's the thing TNA never got. Even though they went to Monday nights, the Monday night I can remember watching it was the night Bret Hart came back. I mean, WWE had a fully loaded gun. I mean, what are you watching? Are you watching old broke down Hulk Hogan, or are you watching Bret Hart for the first time in a long time? I mean, that's however long it was, 97, so 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Jared, we actually have had two really good TNA watch-alongs on here. We had Mr. International Cyrus Fees, and we watched the Kurt Angle Jeff Jarrett MMA exhibition match, which was epic. And we also had Eric Bischoff on here, and we watched Bully Ray win the world title in the culmination of the Aces and Eights storyline, where it's revealed that Bully Ray was, in fact, the leader of the Aces and Eights, which apparently was spoiled on the internet. Everyone predicted it. You know, I heard about it, and I was a TNA LOL guy. And recently, over the last 2 years, I've been digging back through TNA, earlier stuff, later stuff, even with the Hogan Bischoff era stuff. Aces and Eights, if you listen to our episode with Eric Bischoff, and I'm not trying to plug it, but please go do. He took what he'd learned in his experiences from the NWO, and he tried to extrapolate upon that with the Aces and Eights, modernize it, make it a little bit more edgy, but also different. Whereas there's not 87 members. I mean, granted, there were newer members on there. His son was on there, but I don't think the Hogan era quote unquote the Hogan era was a complete failure.
I agree. I agree 100%, but it took them time.
Yeah,
I
It took
agree.
them time to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to put that in the oven and really bake it out.
Right.
Because when they first came on, Hogan and Bischoff wanted it to be 1995 WCW again.
Right.
And they needed it. Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. It's not that
Yeah.
I stopped watching it, but for fans that had been a fan of what they
You
were
could tell
doing prior
you
to
could tell
that,
a drastic change.
Right.
The four-sided ring was big.
I was just going to
that
ask
to me
about
was-
that. What were your thoughts on switching from the 6-sided ring to the 4-sided ring?
I didn't have a preference, but I do think that it set them apart. I do think that for them to come in and immediately change that probably was not. There were a lot of fans that were TNA loyal fans, and I mean maybe it was only a handful of people, but you need to build off those really hardcore fans that are going to continue to buy the product no matter what. And I think that's the transition we're seeing right now between AEW and WWE is you're seeing a kind of natural transition from WWE to AEW and back and forth as they kind of get into their own avenues. And how good does Shawn Michaels look right here, Frank? He looks pretty good right here, doesn't he?
This is the what'd you just say?
Oh, you heard what I said.
I didn't. Did you say rub one out?
I said you got the lube out, but yes,
Oh.
you did rub one out after getting the lube.
No, this is I remember where I was and what I was doing in this pay-per-view. I was at a friend's house. We watched the show. I was so happy when Shawn turned face and just this is one of my all-time top 10 matches, this match. And yes, Shawn is in a lot of my top 10 matches. This one and his Mankind match, which we watched with Shawn Jones, are like in the top 10. What I wanted to real quick, first of all, did y'all see the shitty finish to that last match with Bigelow and Henry?
Yeah.
He missed a knee and got rolled up. Are you kidding me? Like what the fuck was that?
I do have one question, if you don't mind, Frank, or you can do yours first.
I
I was just thinking.
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Because I was just saying, we see, especially with Shawn, there used to be a lot of people would bring like HBK signs and that to the arena. The 1995 was definitely the sign era, and I guess that's kind of changing. And I couldn't help but notice, Jared, you've got the Conrad Fathead on your wall behind you. Could you talk a little bit about, and I'll pull the curtain back a little bit. You were talking to us before we got started about some of the signs you had, and I know you brought an ad-free show signed all out, and I believe you also brought it to the Rumble. And could you tell us the story kind of behind that sign and maybe its appearances on some of the televised events?
We were all at Top Guy Weekend, and I spent that weekend. It was a great weekend, but they didn't get us the itinerary as early as we probably wanted it. And for somebody like me that was really wanting to get into the AEW product while I was in Chicago, I had tickets to go to Rampage on Friday. So I had asked the guys that I ran into on Thursday if I could get some ad-free show signs because I was sitting front row ringside for Rampage. And I'm not sure if they just thought I was kidding or what, but by the end of the weekend, it'd become my challenge to get ad-free show signage on the pay-per-view because they had basically said, hey, we'll send you a merch pack. They kept saying that if you get the signs on, we'll send you a merch pack, right? So I went to Office Depot that Sunday after, Top Guy Weekend ended Saturday. So I was there Sunday pretty much by myself and went to Office Depot, had the Conrad Fathead made and had the ad-free shows. And it was probably, it was wider than my face. So it was a big sign. But we got that on All Out, the Conrad head and the ad-free show sign quite a bit. So much that it got shouted out by multiple people on the ad-free show team, including Conrad. And they sent me a merch pack, which was awesome. So when I went to the Royal Rumble in St. Louis for the Super Show with Jarrett and Bischoff and Conrad, I took it with me, got it signed. But I also took both signs with me to the Rumble. So I had got the Conrad head was with Papa Shango on the pre-show, and that was kind of a moment in itself where it looked like Papa Shango was holding Conrad's head, and that was purposeful.
Papa Shango.
Yeah, if you go to the pre-show, and I think Conrad may have even tweeted about it, but there was a dude dressed as Papa Shango in full-on costume, and he looked pretty good. But it was the pre-show, and it's like Booker T and just the round table before the show, and you can see it clear as day. it looks like Papa Shango's holding the big Conrad head like a lantern. And it's a funny moment. But we got the ad-free show sign on when Roman won the title. So there's a really good shot of that overhead. And then there was a really good shot of Ronda Rousey after her Rumble win. And that was the big pop, the one that's going to be, forever ingrained in everyone's memory. But there's a big ad-free show sign there. And right after that moment, I was tapped on the shoulder and said, we got to get the sign or you're out of here. And so I lost my ad-free show sign that day. And the funniest part of the story is Nick Khan was literally looking at me the whole time because I had ad-free show gear on. I had the ad-free show sign. And I asked after the show, and indeed they were asked to remove it. So it was a nice Coroplast sign because I asked if I could get it back. I thought, well, they probably just tossed it aside and maybe they'll have it. Oh no, it was gone. It was long gone. So
yeah, that's bullshit.
That's my ad-free show sign history story. But there'll be one at Mania. So I've already got it ordered. I'm going to Mania next month. So I've got a new Conrad.
Cool.
This one's retired. This one is the retired one because it's been signed. And Conrad did a really good job signing it. He actually used like a really nice marker, and I got a full signature, which is kind of unique for Conrad, I've heard. So
yeah, because Conrad usually just does CT.
Just CT. Yep. So I am very happy to own it. It's got a lot of stories, a lot of road stories so far. I had a great time at Top Guy Weekend, had a great time at All Out. Totally different vibes, though, on the shows. I mean, honestly. It's just
Can you talk about that a little bit, please, or expand on that if you don't mind?
Hang on a sec, real quick, Jared. So we were all at Top Guy Weekend, too. Well, me, Brandy, and Phil. I feel like such an asshole that we never really got a chance to converse.
No, that's kind of it, man.
I talked to him on I remember the signs. I remember walking up to the arena with you.
Yeah. So I was with a group of Top Guys, and I came by myself. So I didn't come with anybody. I had originally planned to come with a buddy who I got a guest pass for. Well, in the end, I ended up by myself and actually met a group of guys that I have now gotten into a chat group with. And we've literally chatted every day since. And, Travis is a good buddy of mine. I think you guys know Travis.
Mm-hmm.
Travis and I hung out at Rumble. We're going to hang out at Mania. I mean, you kind of make these life, say that again.
You talking about T-Rob?
Yeah, T-Rob.
What other Travis is there?
Yeah, so Travis is a good buddy. We chat regularly. And Rafe and Matt, big shout out to Rafe and Matt and Mike and Travis and those guys in that group because I'll be honest with you, when you get older and you still like professional wrestling, it's not the biggest niche club in your area, right? So you have to seek out the fans. You have to seek out the people that share your interest and ride with them. And that's what I'm doing. I'm glad to be here too.
Matt, I think that's kind of what we're all doing because I'm the same way. Like before I met any of you guys, the person, like I said earlier, watched professional wrestling with my grandmother, and that was it. And then she passed away about 2 months before I actually got heavily involved in ad-free shows as the My Push, and then upgraded to a Top Guy. So it's just nice to feel like you finally found your people in a sense. And I can't wait to go to, because I'm a Top Guy, but I didn't go to Top Guy Weekend last year. I had plans to, and then plans change, pal. But I'm definitely looking forward to going to some events this year, whatever they have. Can't wait to get out of busy season and go meet some of you in person. But it sounds like your story was really, really interesting. I just wanted to hear that about the signs. The only thing I could think about the signs is, were you on the floor?
I was. So I was fourth row for Rumble.
I remember seeing you walking around with the Conrad sign.
Yeah, I think I was third or fourth row. What I do is I just get on these ticket sites and look for individual tickets. So you can't buy single tickets on the floor until they're by themselves. So then
it's crazy.
You can kind of sneak in and get you a good seat, but you got to be kind of on top of it.
What's crazy about All Out? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mania, I'm going to be on the floor for Mania, but I'm not going to be on the hard camera side, so I'm going to have to do some creative work there. But I think that the span on the camera work at WrestleMania is big enough to where I'll probably get some chances. But the thing about it is WWE, and I love WWE. I love AEW. I'm not favorable to either product. I like everything right now. And I mean, I read the sign policy. I specifically looked at the sign policy, and it doesn't outline anything like that. So especially if it's a product that they grant license to, I don't see why it would be an issue. And I feel like my biggest issue with it was I didn't go out of my way to get it up as much as I could have.
That's what I was going to ask.
I had it up all the time. I was looking for it to get taken away. I mean, there's so many shots of that sign and big moments at All Out for Punk's first match, and Adam Cole's debut and Bryan Danielson's debut and all this. I mean, all these moments etched in time, and that sign was there, that Conrad head's there. And that's kind of the whole idea that I had in my head was just, ad-free's given me so much. It's given me an outlet. So, I'm a regular listener of all the podcasts. I think right now, obviously, Double J's podcast is my favorite. Yep. But I mean, I like all of the content. I mean, there's so much content, and I think sharing that. I mean, there's so many people that you go to an event, they don't even know what it is. They've not even scratched the surface of what ad-free shows can be and how much content they can have. And I think WWE would be remiss if they didn't eventually become involved in some way licensing content directly to Conrad.
Conrad's got a good relationship with him already. I mean,
I was going to say, I think they've got a good relationship, because actually that's how I discovered Conrad Thompson was, if you remember back in 2018, they had the Something Else to Wrestle with on the WWE Network.
That's how I learned.
And that was actually where I first watched it. And then after watching them, because originally, I don't think I've ever told you guys the story. I listened to an episode before Something Else to Wrestle, and I couldn't get into it. I didn't get it right away, because I think it was I didn't really know who Bruce or Conrad was. When they did Something Else to Wrestle and they put the video behind it, I'm like, okay, I can see who these guys are now. And the video, if you remember, Something Else to Wrestle used to also have those clips in it. So that's how I started. And the more I got used to them, I'm like, I'll give this another try. And I was a loyal listener ever since. But it's a really interesting story with the signs. And I do think they have a good relationship, because they used to say they would notice spikes on the original network in content that wasn't being promoted. And it was people that were going from the podcast to watch along on the network, especially with WHW.
Correct.
So, fun fact, I was actually at the Hall of Fame where they announced that there would be a Something Else to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. I was there.
Real quick, I just want to interject for 1 second here. We are watching Shawn Michaels against Double J, which is definitely Double J's top 3 best matches of all time. So if you guys are watching along with us, which please God, I hope you are, just aren't listening to listen to us, because we'd want to do that. No. Anyway, watch this match. It's fantastic.
I mean, clearly it's one of Jeff's best matches, is because who is dancing.
There it is.
But Jeff Jarrett himself is also an exceptional worker. He really is.
Do you need a moment alone, Frank?
No, I'm good. I've had plenty of moments alone. So, Jared, what? So, I wanted to ask you because while I want to sit on the floor as much as I possibly can, I feel like, for instance, WrestleMania Backlash is going to be in Providence, and we've got tickets for it. I was willing to spend $600 to $700 for a ringside seat. Ringside seats for WrestleMania Backlash are $1,200.
Yep.
That is an insane price point. And when they remember, they used to coin WWE as the best value in entertainment. How many fucking kids in family or middle income families could afford middle class, yeah, could afford to take 2 parents and 2 kids and have ringside at a show? That what the fuck is that? I mean, even our seats where we are were in 126, was 160 a piece.
I think the big issue right now with professional wrestling is that the house show loop is not what it used to be. So you can't generate the kind of fandom at these events like you used to, because they would be running A, B, sometimes C towns, and you would run multiple shows. I mean, they'd probably have, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 shows a week in a 7-day week. So, I mean, now you're talking about they pretty much just do the live tapings, and they source everything around the live taping. and they want to get the most bang for their buck out of these live events. And I'll tell you, the Royal Rumble, I want to say I paid like $9.50. I hate even saying that out loud. My wife will kill me when she finds that out. But I got a commemorative chair. It was, it was 4.5 hours. I mean, I guess, for me going by myself, that's the thing. I can't take my wife and kids because we would not be able to afford it. But for a wrestling fan, a hardcore wrestling fan like me, WrestleMania, I think I got 2 nights in the lower bowl. I think it's on the second or third row up from the floor, and I'm on an edge seat. I think I did 2 nights for $700. So I thought WrestleMania
that's not bad at all. When you consider that's not bad at all.
So
yeah, that actually sounds a lot more.
WrestleMania was a deal. Personally,
that sounds honestly more affordable. But then again, like, sometimes I find myself buying 1 or 2, like Brandy. When we were going to Dynamite in April, I mean, I would have loved to have sat ringside at Dynamite. I was able to in October for a show that had been almost 2 years in the making because it had been rescheduled because of COVID. I had really good seats for that, but I only paid $275 for it.
Yeah.
But then buying seats for 4 people to go to Dynamite, I still dropped $500.
You know what?
Yeah. I couldn't afford ringside. They went up to $650.
This conversation, I think, is a perfect segue for Michael to get into the cash course.
Absolutely.
We are talking dollars. So.
Absolutely. And then if you don't mind, after that, I want to follow up on our discussion with Jared on a couple points related to that house show loop, because I think it ties in nicely as well.
All right. Here we go.
Money, 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 money.
Yes, folks, it's that time to dig deep into the handy-dandy ledger for a little cash course. Now, today we are looking at the In Your House franchise. Now, over the past few weeks, I've done a couple different approaches to cash course where typically we've looked at comparative data year over year. We won't be doing that tonight, and there's a very specific reason for it. The In Your House concept was launched in this year, 1995. This is In Your House 2. So what I thought would be interesting is let's look at the performance of the concept of In Your House overall for the entire year of 1995. So what we're going to do is let's start with In Your House 1 compared to In Your House 2. In Your House 1 saw 322,000 buys compared to In Your House 2's 280,000 buys. That's a drop of 42,000 buys or 13%. Now, obviously, the first one, there's going to be some more initial interest because it's a brand new concept. As we continue, we would expect, okay, maybe it's going to level out somewhere. Estimates would be maybe around the 200,000 buy mark, but let's see what happens here. In Your House 3, compared to In Your House 2, saw another decrease. We went from 280,000 buys down to 175,000 buys, or a 37% decline. Now, we would see spikes and buy rates would continue to increase for the big 4 pay-per-views of SummerSlam and Survivor Series, but these In Your Houses were kind of designed to be that in-between pay-per-view, something to continue the storyline, and they were kind of seen as a value-added device and a way for the company to continue to generate revenue during months they didn't have a big 4 pay-per-view. So let's look at In Your House 3 to In Your House 4. We would see a drop from the 175,000 buys of In Your House 3 down to 100,000 buys of In Your House 4, or that would be a 42% decrease. Now, there are, again, reasons for that. These cards weren't always the most value-added in terms of a star power comparing a SummerSlam to a Survivor Series, but I just thought it was interesting that we have this brand new concept that continues to decrease. Now, one more we want to look at is let's look at from In Your House 4 to In Your House 5. In Your House 4's 100,000 buys compared to the 80,000 buys of In Your House 5. Another 20,000 buy buys decrease, and that's also a 20% decrease. Now, let's really take a look at this overall big picture. Let's look from In Your House 1, which was in May of 1995, to In Your House 5 in December, and kind of get a year-over-year look at this. So what we're seeing is we would see from a revenue-generated standpoint, because if we take the buys times the price of the pay-per-view, which around this time for In Your House 1 would have been $15, that gave us approximately $4.8 million of revenue, compared to the In Your House 5, I believe it was called Season Beatings. That one would generate only $1.6 million of revenue. And it's interesting to note that not only was there a buy decrease in the number of buys of the pay-per-view, but even with these decreases and the fact that WWF was aware of the decrease in pay-per-view buys, they actually increased the price by $5 in 1995, as In Your Houses would go from being $15 to $20. So overall, from a revenue-generated standpoint of In Your House 1, we had $4.8 million. In Your House 5 had $1.6 million. So that is a revenue drop of $3.2 million, or 66.6%, about 2/3. And from a buy rate standpoint of 80,000 buys compared to the initial 322,000 buys, we're seeing a decrease of 242,000 buys, or a drop of 75%. Now, again, our expectation would be that the price drop and the buys drop would be consistent by the percentage, but you have to factor in that $5 increase on the December pay-per-view, which helped offset the decrease a little bit. But still, what we're seeing here at In Your House 2 is that it's kind of like that old Price is Right game, where the fiddler player would go up on the thing and they would eventually fall off a cliff. That's kind of where we're at with 1995 at this point. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been In Your House, a cash course.
All right, I want to ask Devin a question real quick here.
Yeah, shoot.
Had you ever watched this show before today?
Before earlier today, no, I hadn't.
Right, so you did your homework.
Yeah.
What I really want to know from a stupid son of a bitch that's young, what your thoughts on the World Wrestling Federation WWE were? What did you think of this show from 1995 in comparison to what you're used to now? Or, like, for instance, remind me, Devin, when did your fandom in pro wrestling start? Like, what's your earliest memory?
So, growing up, my dad had all the VHSs of, like, not all the Raws, but, like, 20s, 30s, different Raws throughout the 1997, 98, and 99. So I've watched all that growing up. But I was born in 97, so then, like, my memory starts in, like, 2000. So comparing that to this, like, this is cartoony and creative and stuff, but still you get to see flashes of the badass, like Psycho Sid. He's fun to watch here. And Shawn Michaels is obviously, 1A or 1B and the greatest of all time. And it's fun to see, like, the very first match. It was 1-2-3 Kid versus the Roadie, who both going to be in D-Generation X in, like, 2 years.
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty fun. But overall, I think it's kind of just it's more cartoony than
Cartoony is definitely the word. Like Jared. I mean, we were talking earlier about how great some of the performers were in this era, but then I want to go back. Were you a super fan of the Goon, Mantar, and Duke the Dumpster Grosek?
Oh no,
I was not. But one thing I want to jump back on a little bit. I think we're seeing some pretty good wrestling here. I mean, I think the characters needed work for sure, and we were starting to see WWF come out of that a little bit with the new generation, moving away toward super duper character gimmicks, which obviously the transition from, Hogan to Michaels to Austin, that kind of transition there. For me as a fan, we're seeing wrestling here that we hadn't seen before on WWF pay-per-views.
I completely agree.
I mean, I don't know that there was a match prior to this. Probably would have had to be something that Bret Hart had. Maybe Bret Hart and British Bulldog at SummerSlam. probably Brett and Owen. I mean, some of the stuff that they were doing on house shows, Double J talks about that a lot. They would go out and they would have these killer matches, on house shows, and they'd go on TV and they wouldn't do anything. And that's, all these matches, how long has this match been on? 10 minutes, 12 minutes?
This match has a ring time of 20 minutes 1 second even.
I mean, we just don't see that on WWE on TV very often anymore. Even big top matches don't get that time. And I think AEW, I would think Tony Khan probably sat through a lot of this. He's probably really close to our age. I mean, he's in our age group for sure. He's watching stuff like this as a kid. So, I mean, certainly it's helping his booking style with matching anyway.
Two questions that jump off of that for me, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First one is to Jared. Second one is to Devin. But actually, I'll start with Devin's first because Jared's might be a little bit more of a discussion. But Devin, so I agree with you. 1995 is more cartoony. But did you watch wrestling during the pandemic era, the 2020 to 2021, like the Thunderdome era?
Yeah, I kept watching Monday Night Raw every single week.
So a question is, what would you prefer as a fan? Because I agree with you, 1995 is very cartoony, and it's not my era of wrestling. But as a fan, if given the choice, would you rather watch the 1995 product or the Thunderdome era product?
Oh, I would choose 95 for sure. The Thunderdome was just dry.
Okay,
it was.
I really was curious. I really was curious with that. Now, to circle back to the question on the 20-minute matches, because I do think we see a lot more of that in AEW with the 2 draws and the even the matches that aren't draws going longer. I like that, but
and new Intercontinental Champion.
I love that belt. Is that one of the ones from your belt makers, Frank, that you always use?
This one is not from the belt maker. This one I actually got from Henry.
Frank, you didn't say it right.
What?
You didn't say it right. You just said and new. It's and new Intercontinental Champion.
Love the Howard Finkel tribute.
I definitely. So I got word today that my scratch logo Big Eagle is ready.
That's awesome.
I should have that soon.
And they send you pictures along the process, don't they? Don't they?
You got Jared. You got the Intercontinental title back there too. Yeah, see, that's a beautiful belt.
Oh, I love that.
I've got I got a ferret. Account for anything?
Is that is the Intercontinental belt? Is that the Intercontinental title you have behind you, Jared?
It is. So I went for the. I was looking for the My World. So Double J has a spread that he has in his office of the Intercontinental, the Dome Globe. This is just a thin plate replica. But it is.
Yeah, but it's WWF. See,
correct. It's era correct.
See, I bought the Intercontinental title from WWE Shop, and I loved it, but I could not get over it saying WWE on it. So
yeah, that's what I hated about my big gold. I had the WWE official big gold, and it had a WWE logo on it. So I actually, one of the connections I've made through Ad Free and through my wrestling travels was able to hook me up with this guy. And this has got the Double J nameplate, which I had issues trying to source. But this is WCW Double J era correct.
That's really cool.
So yeah, I really like this one. This one's really thick. It's on an actual leather strap. This one's the prize of the collection for me. But
I I just think that's cool because you don't see a lot of people that have the old school NWA belt. That's the one to me.
When he says era specific, that's what. So I go through a belt maker called X-Man Belts, and I have a beautiful winged eagle hanging up. And they made me a Demolition era specific tag title, and the European Championship to the British Bulldogs back. So they're fantastic, and I will never buy another belt from anywhere else.
Hey, do you guys see Bob Holly in the background there? He's probably asking someone to give him the damn belt.
Sparky plug.
Thurman.
There's Aldo Montoya. We've got Justin Credible.
Jared, I wanted to ask you too. You had mentioned kind of your group of friends. You said Matt. Matt who, if you don't mind me asking?
Williams. Matt Williams.
I don't know him. Because
chances are we kind of flew under the radar. See, what happened was I came in on Thursday. and I was by myself, and I was in the Discord trying to find anybody who could. I can't get Discord to ever seem to work for me very well. So I was reaching out on the Discord to see if anybody was in town on Thursday, and nobody really said anything. And then I went down to the bar and ended up, Eric was down there with Lori and Evan, and a bunch of ad-free show guys were down there, but they weren't really in their gear yet. And I had that kind of goofy blue, that light blue shirt that they gave us on. So that immediately attracted me to the group down there. And then I met Rafe the next day, who's friends with Keep It Real Dave. So if you've ever seen the It's Still Real to Me Dave, he was the Top Guy weekend, right?
I was so surprised to see him there. My buddy Connor was with me. I'm like, Connor, look, you're not going to believe this. That's the It's Still Real to Me guy. He's like, no, it's
I didn't even know who he was. I'm a wrestling mark for a long time, and I didn't recognize. I mean, I had seen that clip before, but I didn't know that he was like his own thing. So Dave's a super cool guy. So Dave was trying to get to the GCW show on Friday. So we ended up driving him like halfway so he could Uber the rest of the way to the GCW show to try to get some merch out. But Dave was there with us at Top Guy Weekend. I met Rafe. Rafe and Dave and I started hanging out. And then Rafe knew Mike previously. They both live in North Carolina. And then Matt kind of filtered in. And I met Travis on Thursday. Travis was the first person I met at Top Guy Weekend. And me and Travis have stayed in pretty much, we talk at least weekly, pretty much every day at this point. But we talk at least weekly. But huge shout out to those guys because they get, it gives you an outlet when you've got buddies to talk to run product by. And it gets you that much more excited about watching the product.
Yes.
And I don't know that it gets much better than Owen Hart in the ring right now with Yokozuna and Jim Cornette. So
I have a question about the show.
Yeah.
So we just seen Doc Hendricks in the back talking about Jesse James hitting Jeff Jarrett, and then they went into the locker room. Is this the part where they left the building?
Yeah, they peaced out. That's that whole story. Yep. That's exactly.
And I think they told that story on a recent My World, didn't they? Did they cover that?
They covered it. Yep. They covered it. Yeah.
What's crazy is they went out and Road Dogg had that match with Waltman that was killer. Pretty good match for an opener. And then Jarrett goes out and has that match, and he sang. At no point through the whole pay-per-view would you have thought, man, these two dudes are throwing up the deuces and heading out the door as soon as that match is over. I wouldn't have bet money on that.
No,
so
you know what that was?
For them to be professional on the way out. If they knew they were leaving and they knew it the whole time, like they say, and it was that clean of a leave, they sure went out, on a high horse because they sure didn't. They didn't make the product any worse on the way out the door.
I was gonna say that shows their professionalism, and you could tell that was to me what made My World the most interesting podcast was the first story on the first episode, the holding up Vince and the way Jeff outlined it. Such a different narrative than what we've heard for years, and I thought that was really interesting and made me look at Jeff Jarrett in a whole new light in a very positive way because Jeff is actually my favorite of the podcast hosts. It used to be Eric, but now it's Jeff just because I think I relate more to the My World stories, and I just love the TNA era stuff. I love, like tonight they just released Destination X 2007.
Hey, check this out, guys. So right now, Lex Luger, Yokozuna, the ring, they had that program for almost a year.
Yep.
2 months later, Lex Luger walks into the Mall of America, debuts in WCW on Nitro, and people still talk about that freaking debut.
Yes.
Walked in, and a lot of people say that debuts and re-debuts and jumps from one to the other, it's overdone. And sometimes a surprise just needs to be a surprise, not a hype. I can see it both ways, but what do you guys? Do you think Lex Luger should have been hyped coming into WCW? Or do you think they did it just right?
I think it was just right, and I'll tell you why. It set the tone of unpredictability.
Yeah, I agree.
Different.
I think Luger was over. I think Luger was more over with the WCW crowd anyways. They remembered. I remembered him. I remembered seeing him in JCP and NWA, and I don't think he was ever over with WWE fans in this generation ever.
Not really.
I think they always looked at him as his Hogan light, and there were other performers that outshined him. He wasn't outshining Shawn Michaels. He wasn't outshining Kevin Nash. He wasn't outshining Scott Hall. He's mid-card personified right now, in my opinion, other than his build. I mean,
Right.
the Lex Express was a super big failure.
But if we look at
the rocket ship to somebody who didn't want it, really didn't want to do that.
That's what killed it for him, is he didn't really engage with the fans, and he didn't really get into the Lex Express situation. He was kind of just quite frankly an asshole the whole time. And Lex, he jumps just like I said a couple months later. And he's been with the company for I believe 3 years now.
I believe.
Well, if you count WBF, it was a little bit longer.
I don't count that bullshit
because Lex Luger shows up at WrestleMania 8.
Right. The crazy thing that gets me is that Lex Luger goes to WCW for a fraction of what he's making in WWE. Because on 83 Weeks, Eric Bischoff even said, I didn't want Lex Luger. I gave him the lowest offer I could think of just to get him to say no, and he accepted it. That's how badly Lex was dissatisfied with his current WWE role. Which
it goes back to what JR always said. The 2 C's, cash and creative. In that instance, creative won out.
Absolutely. And I think with cash and creative, I've always been a firm believer of if you have the right creative, the cash will come.
I agree, because the key thing here, and I think it really, Lex Luger is a prime example of it, but with anybody, it's having the company doesn't even need to invest in your character, or the company needs to invest in your character, but at the same time, you need to invest in your character. And I think that's one of the reasons that we see, and I'm not an AEW shill by any means when I say this, but I think sometimes that's why we could make the case there sometimes is more involved in better character development in AEW, because it seems like those individuals are bringing characters to the table that Tony Khan is kind of helping them develop, whereas in WWE, to be quite honest, you're assigned a character in most instances, not all, but in most.
You mean assigned like when they called Pete Dunne Butch?
Yeah.
Why did you bring that up?
Same thing with Gunner, or not Gunner, but
Walter.
Walter. There you go, Walter. Yeah, I mean they ruined Walter for me. I mean Walter had a series of matches on NXT UK that were next level last year.
Oh, I remember those.
I mean, he had a series of matches that were just insane. And now he's going to be something completely different. I mean,
his match with who was it? Dragovic?
Dragunov.
Yeah,
Dragunov.
I mean, they did one on NXT UK, and then they brought it over to the Takeover. It was unreal, unbelievable.
There's
I
one exception.
I think my biggest gripe with, I mean, obviously you could go on and on and on about what WWE is doing that's turning fans off, but like from an AEW standpoint, what gets me is some of the overbooking.
Yes.
Like this past week on Dynamite, like how many factions are going to break up the same episode? How many, previous week before that, you had Punk, you had Punk attached to the ropes or tied up, and then you had Hangman tied up in the same episode, kind of in the same exact way. And it's like,
I see what you're saying there. Yeah,
that happens a lot. Like,
I agree.
Where, it's Adam Cole and Adam Page. I mean, a lot of the stuff that WWE, we hate them for changing names. The one thing, it's like, how many Adams do you have?
Right. Exactly. That's
Cage,
yeah.
Christian Cage, Brian Cage. I mean, it's one of those things where they have so much to offer. AEW has so much to offer product-wise. The talent roster is beyond loaded. With Ring of Honor, it's even on another level now. But like, to me, they give everything just so quickly. I mean, they're so quick to give us what we want to see, but then when we see it, it's like, man, I really wish we could have had a build toward that.
Right.
I felt like the Inner Circle breakup. I'm inclined to agree with that.
Right.
I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Phil. You're good.
No, I do agree with that in 99.9% of the instances, but one build they did perfectly, and I haven't seen this in years.
I think I know who you're going to say.
Adam Page,
yep.
Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
That build.
Oh, yeah, no.
That was masterfully done, and it, I would love to see WWE do more long-term story.
I'm not saying I don't like it. I just think that they give us so much. It's like this last week's episode of Dynamite, there was so many high impact moments where it's like, oh, now the Inner Circle is broken up, and now we're going to do this differently, and we're going to continue.
3 title matches on the same show.
Yeah. What I'd say is with WWE, the inmates are on lockdown. With AEW, the inmates are running the asylum. So,
what did you say, Devin? 3 what in the same show?
They had 3 title matches on the same
Yeah.
show that 2 factions broke up.
You know,
Jericho started a new one.
So
and then one. I'm sorry, Phil.
No, that's fine. It's just that, you know, you have to kind of pick which one do you prefer, more controlled storylines and more narrated stuff, or do you prefer more seat of your pants stuff and promos that really aren't scripted? You know, more NWA style as opposed to WWE style. See, that's what I compare AEW, WWE are back in the day, the NWA, WWE, and we're talking prime NWA, 86, 87.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's got that vibe to it for me. Obviously, AEW has this modern twist, and they've got wrestlers like Omega and the Bucks and, you know, Penta doing shit that people in NWA in 87 would have never even thought existed. But the vibe, the spirit of that competition between those two companies is there. That's what I feel.
I don't have anything negative. I don't have anything negative to say, really. I mean, I'm not saying it in a way that I just think they have so much to offer that it's almost like we need more content on Rampage, or we need to start spacing it out to Dark.
I agree with you, Jared. I completely agree. And I don't think you're saying anything negative at all. I think what you're saying is really think of it like a buffet. That's kind of how I think of it. Jim Ross likes to use that analogy of wrestling is like a buffet. And sometimes it's like, honestly, with AEW, and it's a good problem to have, you could say too much of a good thing in some instances, whereas you kind of need those. I don't like the term, but you need like more of the enhancement talent matches. Not everything needs to be a high impact moment, because the truth is, if the majority of your show is high impact moments, they're not as impactful. Like, to me, one of the most impactful moments in AEW over a 2-week span was the Punk and MJF promos from a couple weeks ago.
Masterfully done.
That to me was perfectly done, and it made where, like, to me, the highlight of the Revolution pay-per-view was the dog collar match.
Yeah. And see, you tied off that, like, I think as a wrestling fan for the longest time, WWE would not give us factions. It seems like they went away from factions.
They did.
And now they were able to take that Punk and MJF storyline, and then they also tied in the Wardlow aspect to it, which was awesome, and getting Wardlow over huge and giving him just all the time in the world to build that up. They didn't force Wardlow on us at all. I mean, we had to watch him be a complete prick to everybody. He had to be MJF's lackey for, I mean, pretty much ever since AEW started, he's been kind of his lackey. And now he gets to get one up. Now he's going to be one of the top faces in the company, probably going to be the TNT champion soon, probably going to be competing for a world championship. So now you've spawned off an elite level talent in Wardlow through that storyline as well, which is why I think factions work when they're done the right way. And that's, I mean, I think Wardlow is going to be huge. And see,
I do too.
You can talk about Revolution.
He's until Revolution. But after Revolution, because the way they did it too with the ring and just putting the ring on the apron, that was perfect.
Yep. Because he didn't have to be a heel and he didn't have to cause Punk to win.
No,
he didn't actually do anything other than basically say he was not going to help MJF win. That was what I liked about it was, and he came out and cut the promo where it's like he has to apologize for everything that he's done, and he realizes he's going to have to make it up to everybody, but he's going to do it the right way, and he's going to be the champion, and he's going to be a champion that people can respect. That is so NWA, WCW stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
WWE doesn't do stuff like that. They don't.
Honestly, my prediction is Double or Nothing or All Out 2023. I think it takes a year to a year and a half, but I think he's in a world title match or is your world champion in a year to a year and a half.
Well, just imagine MJF gets his first world title, right?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden Wardlow's there. Wardlow's there to challenge and say, "Knock, knock, remember me?" I mean, that's what we're building towards. And I
agree.
I mean, how good does MJF look in a loss to Punk? I mean, is there anybody that looks as good in a loss? I mean, other than maybe Ric Flair. You know, Ric Flair could lose and still look like $1 million. He could win and look like $1 million, and that's MJF.
Yep.
To me, MJF is top right now for me.
There's a statement that a lot of people say that, like, this person didn't need a title, that person didn't need a title. And I usually largely disagree with that. I think, a lot of people that should have had a title. MJF is an exception for that for me. MJF, he could never have a title in his entire AEW run and will still be a top tier main event relevant person no matter what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
But you had mentioned something about WWE not really backing factions or doing factions very well over the last several years. They had one faction. They did it perfectly. They ran roughshod for almost 3 years, and now almost all of them are in AEW. That's Undisputed Era. Probably one of my top 3 favorite factions.
And it's a shame. It's a shame that they couldn't get a run on Raw or SmackDown with that. They should have.
Yeah, they should have went right to Raw,
it's
right to
criminal.
SmackDown. All 4 of them, and did the same thing from the ground up in NXT. Yeah. They in Monday Night Raw. They could have just done it. It kills me how they dropped the ball with a lot of stuff, especially after Triple H has left. I'm not going to get into NXT 2.0 because I've seen none of it, nor will I ever see any of it. So, but yeah,
they're still having some really good matches on NXT 2.0.
Oh, they are.
The matches are not bad, but it's hard to watch it from somebody who watched NXT.
It's not the same.
To start. I mean, they should have called it something different. It's just like when they brought back ECW and called it ECW. They could have called it anything else in the world. Yeah. And it's like, why NXT 2.0? It's like 1.0 wasn't good enough, so now we're upgrading.
I miss NXT so much.
And realistically, it's 3.0 because if you remember, prior to the NXT being the developmental, there was I went to a couple of them live because they used to be filmed before SmackDown, the competition era show. Where you talk about factions. I think one of the last there's 2 actually. A good faction that spawned out of the pandemic was the Hurt Business. I think there was more potential there with the Hurt Business than what they actually did, even though what they did was phenomenal. But to me, the last faction that got me really invested, it's been 11 years, but when they first did the Nexus angle, that worked. To me.
And see, for me, I probably take it back even a hair further than that. I mean, the Shield is kind of a faction-ish, but I think Evolution for me was the last one that they were able to really bring in a storyline, show us why they were doing it, and then they branched off and they built Randy Orton into a mega superstar, Batista's a mega superstar, Triple H makes them look like $1 million, and that's what it's all about. I mean, Triple H was the bastard heel that everybody hated, and Batista and Orton came up and rose above the ranks and beat him. And that's what a faction's all about, is giving somebody a rub and then creating a superstar on the next level.
Well, kind of pivot here for just a moment. We're leading up into our main event here. Diesel against Psycho Sid in a, in a lumberjack match. And I think this was the absolute perfect time to be filled in.
There you go.
Frank, you're not me.
I know that.
Frank's like, thank God.
No.
So here we are at the main event. Diesel against Psycho Sid, which it's been well documented how I'm not a huge fan of Psycho Sid, but we're not here to discuss Psycho Sid. I'm here to discuss Diesel. Diesel is mostly known for having the lowest draw for a WWE champion ever, the lowest draw rate. But what people also forget to realize about Diesel is he had the longest world title reign of the 90s, the absolute longest. Now, how can both of those things, some people say they go hand in hand. They got sick of him. That's why no one wanted to watch him, or no one wanted to watch him. And then, they just kept shoving him down our throats, hoping people would watch him. I disagree with all of that. as we all know, we all hear, wrestling ratings and business is cyclical. So there'll be ups, there'll be downs, there'll be peaks, there'll be valleys on viewership and house shows, which house shows don't exist anymore, really. So, that's kind of a moot point now between now and then. But Diesel has a lot of hate for his world title run because people say it was mediocre. They say that it just didn't work for anybody. And again, I disagree. Diesel, if you look at him right there, look at the guy. He's everything. Just looking at the man, you'd want a world champion. He's got the look. He's got that it factor. The dude is literally just cool as fuck. I mean, if you ever talk to Kevin Nash or listen to a Kevin Nash interview, the dude just is one of the coolest fucking guys you'll ever meet in your life. Diesel had every single thing there for him to be a megastar, and Vince turned him into a megastar, which is why he was able to go back to WCW, make $1 bajillion or however much money they made him. It doesn't matter. But to say that it was Diesel's fault that the ratings were so low in '95, and that he was the reason why the championship draw was so low was completely unfair. I think it was a combination of creative and just WWE being in a slump and it being a cyclical business. And if anyone disagrees with the fact that Diesel was a bad champion or a low drawing champion or wasn't a charismatic champion or didn't fit the role or mold of a champion, you can suck it. No, I'm just kidding. But that's my take, and you've been filled in.
All right, so real quick, I want to just recap. We did talk through the Owen Hart Yokozuna versus the Allied Powers match. Actually, I thought it was a decent match. I've never been a fan of. I've always thought that Lex Luger was a horrible seller.
Wait! How does he sell?
Oh gosh! All right. In WCW, it was always you punch him in the gut. Oh! Then you kick him in the back of his knee. Oh! You slap him in the face. Oh! It was always. I don't know. But it was a decent match with a decent finish. And the right people, that being Owen and Yoko, retained the championship. Also, to make note of the fact that Skip with Sonny faced off against Aldo Montoya in the show's dark match. Also, because this was only a 2-hour pay-per-view and they wanted to send the fans home happy, after the main event, Bret Hart will take on Jean-Pierre Lafitte, and The Undertaker with Paul Bearer will take on Kama with Ted DiBiase, with Bret going over and The Undertaker going over. Just want to throw that out there.
Real quick, I wanted to point something out that people might have missed during the Shawn Michaels Double J match. After Shawn won, you see him leaving the ring, and he gives his wife a smooch. And then I promise you, he walked promptly into the back room and plowed Sonny with the Intercontinental title over his shoulder.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah. Okay. That's good shit, pal. All right.
That would be me at a wrestling show. They just showed my doppelganger in the crowd there with the dark lipstick and wearing a black veil over her head. Yep. Mm-hmm. Like, what was I doing?
Debuting a new superstar.
Jesus Christ.
So I'm going to focus on the fill-in segment for a second. Because Phil, I agree with you that wrestling is a cyclical business, and I'm going to take what some might say is a heat-seeking moment. I agree that Austin, so we're going to fast forward a little bit here. I agree that Austin definitely drew houses. I agree that, but I honestly believe that after Hulk Hogan, there was no single superstar that you could say drew an entire house. There were matches, there were pairs of superstars like Austin and Rock together definitely did, but I think your comments about the business being cyclical are 100% spot on, because I think even without Stone Cold Steve Austin, I think we would have seen an upswing in the WWF business in 1997, 1998. Like, say Austin's neck injury had been to the point where he couldn't be as involved as an in-ring competitor. I still think you had The Rock on the rise. I think you had enough people on the rise that there would have been an increase. So I know that might be kind of a hot take,
Yeah,
but I think
it is.
honestly the last singular person to draw an entire house was Hulk Hogan. So I think what we're starting to see here during this 1995 era is where the company itself starts to, the brand of WWF and what is represented by that is what's drawing the houses, and it's really a collective, collaborative card. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I'm gonna call bullshit on that right now because
Okay.
Shawn Michaels drew houses, and the reason I'm gonna tell you that right now is because I went to a house show. This is the peak of actually the beginning of the Attitude Era. Shawn Michaels was still the champion at the time. It was right after he suffered his back injury at Royal Rumble '98, and he was main eventing that show in Hartford, but could not make the show because of his back injury. And there was a note on the door, like they put a notice on the door before they let us in that they offered ticket refunds for anybody that was pissed about it, and they lost half the house that night.
Okay, that's interesting, but that's also so two factors to consider there, and I agree with you, Frank. But I've also been at shows where I was in Buffalo and it was Randy Orton and Wade Barrett were supposed to be the main event there. This is 2011, and they did the same thing. And I don't know what they lost in terms of a house, but another question I want to ask you is who was Shawn Michaels' dancing partners during that time, or who was his opponents? Because it used to be with Hogan.
The Undertaker.
Okay, so I'm sure The Undertaker helped draw some of the house. I'm not saying the majority of it. What I'm saying is back in the 80s, you could have put Hulk Hogan in the ring against a enhancement talent. Not that you would, but if all you had to say was Hulk Hogan's on the card and people are going to show up. Whereas I think in the 90s, it started to, and it was a slow transition. So I do think you're right. But I think what we're seeing is over time, the business starts to become more known for the company branding than the individual superstars in terms of one person drawing the house.
Jared, what do you think about that? Do you think that's
and I could be wrong?
I think it's a fair question. I don't know that it's a reality though.
I agree.
Mean, Hogan continued to draw houses even when he went to WCW in this era. So Hogan drew houses as a heel champion at this time. And not that the NWO was a single person, but the NWO is pretty much I think a lot of people would tend to agree that's the single
Holy
reason
shit! Diesel just did a suicide dive. When's the last time you saw that?
Yeah.
Wow. That's okay. That was a whole.
I think this is an underrated match too. When you watch it back, I think Conrad says it best for when he sees two big guys going at it, it's pretty much a pass for him. I think these two guys could go. I think for two legit 6'10" plus dudes, I think they both could go. And I think Diesel as a low level champion, I think it's hard to say that when Hogan just jumped to WCW. They lost a lot of fans during this era because they went over to WCW to see it for the first time probably. And I think that's a criticism that never gets brought up, is that Hogan left and Diesel and Shawn Michaels and Taker and all these guys were able to keep WWF out of, going out of business. That has to be said for something because like Mike said,
I agree.
Hogan drew the houses. So that's probably one of the reasons why the draw rate was down right now for WWF is because they lost their stud. They lost their number one money guy. Whether you like Hogan or not, he drew money everywhere he went. He drew money.
Yeah.
And WCW, they had Goldberg for a while that packed houses. Austin was over, Rock was over. There's always a handful of guys, right? But I don't think you're drawing off of anything more than the top 3 or 4.
That's what I mean. It's becoming a collaborative effort. Whereas with Hogan, you could make the case that he literally individually carried the business on his back.
So real quick, guys, right here, they're setting up for SummerSlam because Mabel just attacked Diesel on the outside there. Devin, I wanted to ask you what are your thoughts? When you go to a wrestling show, Devin, is there one singular person that draws you to it? For instance, last night at Big Time Wrestling, I went because it was the Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys were the draw for that show. It would not have been as packed as it was last night if the Hardy Boys weren't there. And Jay Lethal was on that show last night, along with the Briscoes. and by far, that was the first time I'd ever seen the Briscoes wrestle, and I'm a fan of them now. I like Jay Lethal. I did not follow him in TNA, but I'm well aware of what he's about. But the Hardys were the draw last night. So for you, Devin, do you go to a show because it's wrestling and you don't care, or there's somebody you're looking to see?
So if it's an indie show, then yeah, I'm gonna kind of only go if there's people that I know. Like in October, we were supposed to have a show about an hour away from here that is just gonna be Chris Masters, Carlito was gonna be there, Mike Kyoto was gonna be the referee. So I was gonna go to that show, but I ended up getting canceled because of COVID and stuff.
Mhm.
But if it's like AEW or WWE, I'm just gonna go because I think it's April 12th or April 11th, one of the 2 days. WWE is coming to Syracuse, which is like 2 hours south of me, and I'm going to that show. And tickets for that were only like $55 each, and that's second row by ringside. So
Is it a house show?
Yep, live.
See-
And it's supposed to be just the Raw roster.
Oh, yeah.
But-
See, honestly, I would ball out for ringside seat at like a house show because they're not as expensive.
Yeah, that's why we're going.
I did
$55
second
for the
row
second row.
at the last Anchorage house show we did.
That's talking about houses and going to see specific people. There's one exception to that, and everyone knows what it is. It's WrestleMania. You could put literally just about anybody in the main event slot in WrestleMania. Half the people there aren't going to know what the match is until they get there because WrestleMania itself is its own spectacle now. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Let's go to WrestleMania. Who's wrestling? Who cares? It'll be fun.
Yeah, they still have isn't there 20% tickets still not sold for that?
Well, I mean, you got to remember they're trying. What I think they're trying to spin now, and why they kept it a 2-night thing, was that they want to pack 100,000 people in each night and say that they drew 200,000 people at WrestleMania.
Right.
And I just want to bring this up too because this show is in Nashville. It was announced in the last couple of days that the Titans are looking to build a new stadium, and it's going to be a domed stadium in Nashville. So they're talking about. There's a possibility that Nashville could be a landing spot for a WrestleMania and a Super Bowl.
I think it'll be for WrestleMania because if you look at it, they're already getting SummerSlam this year, and I think SummerSlam's one of the ones you could make the case that, to me, Rumble, SummerSlam, and Mania kind of now draw on that branding of people will just go because it's those events.
That's what's happening with me. I'm going. Well, it's Nashville too. I'm going. But Brandy, you had your hand up. What's up?
Is it going to be in the same spot as Nissan, or where are they going to put it?
I think they're going to build it in the current parking lot. So remember where we parked? We went into the so I think they're going to put it there and make the other side. But I just don't know what the logistical. It sounds like a logistical nightmare while they're building it.
Diesel just with a big.
Well, yeah, because people trying to find places to park. It's already crazy enough to find parking at an NFL stadium.
Yeah.
You throw construction in on top of it. It's like, what the fuck?
I mean, we all knew Diesel was going over.
Area
Oh,
that they have Nissan Stadium is in Nashville is like fucking perfect because they're just across the river from Broadway and the main drag of Nashville, and Bridgestone Arena is not far from there, and it's easily walkable. Both Frank and myself did it with
no.
They
even have a full-on walking pedestrian bridge.
Oh, that's really nice.
So
Nashville has
great...
set up really nice. I mean, Frank, you're local, so CMA Fest is a huge deal for Nashville. So we've done that.
Jared, I'm not local. I live in Rhode Island.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I thought you were local. I'm coming here every day. You're a Titans fan, but you're local. You're local. You said Boston, right?
Well, I live in Westerly, Rhode Island. I grew up an Oilers fan.
Okay.
And I believe in loyalty, so I stuck with them, even though I could have jumped to the Patriots very quickly.
Yeah.
I never did. I've been to Gillette to see I will tell you this: since they have been the Tennessee Titans, I have never seen them win in Gillette. I know that they have. They obviously ended the New England Patriots Tom Brady era, but I've never seen. Every time I go, they lose in New England.
That's really cool, man.
Real quick, I want to steal a quote from our Top Guy Theater group text that we have here. Tom Brady came out of retirement because of gas prices. That's from Mike Cole.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mike. So, yeah, But you are right, like Jared. Nashville is actually a really awesome place. I really want to. Once my daughter's older and goes off to college, I'd love to live there.
It's really nice. I mean, when they have CMA Fest, we did that several years before we had kids, and then we.
How
stopped
is that? I'd love to do that. I'm a huge country music. We're like huge country
CMA
music.
Fest is
I've wondered if it's worth it.
It is insane.
Okay.
So stay away from packages. It's just like anything else. But they used to sell like $129. You got a wristband that you could go in all these different venues. So Nashville, like Brandy and Frank were talking about, their arena is right down the street from their big football stadium where they have the actual all the big deal country singers are. My wife's really into country music. And like all of the kind of lower level, they have Bridgestone, they have the convention center. Now they've got the Country Music Hall of Fame, the new one. I mean, they've got all these facilities that they could use for multiple events. And like I saw with WrestleMania specifically, it's like Tuesday to Tuesday. It's not just like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's like wrestling in town all weekend, all over the place.
Yeah.
You literally can go a day from Tuesday to Tuesday and not find wrestling. Impact's going to be there. AAA is going to be there. GCW has a whole series of shows. WrestleCon. WWE unfortunately canceled Access, but I think it's probably because there's so much other stuff going on. They don't even need it. I mean,
there's even outside of WWE, there's so much going on because I write for the Last Word on Pro Wrestling. We cover all of the shows. We've been following all of the stuff that's coming up. There's like almost 100 independent wrestling shows going on that week.
It's crazy. Yeah,
it's
just the
insanity.
Week. It's literally Tuesday to Tuesday. Because when I started looking for stuff to do, it was like, okay, what sold me was the Super Show Live with Conrad. So obviously I was like, okay, I want to go to that. And I saw where I could get Mania tickets for a halfway decent price. But I was going to go to Dallas because I have family in Dallas. I wanted to go to the Super Show regardless of Mania. But then when I started seeing everything else, I got tickets for WrestleCon. And it's like, I mean, you could spend a year's salary doing all this stuff. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
I've done
WrestleCon to get in the ticket, and then every single individual
spent a lot of money that way.
Yeah, I mean, so many meet and greets, so many like different shows. Kevin Nash is doing a show after the Super Show Live with all of Conrad's guys, so Double J will be there. Those are all at, I think.
Is it his shenanigans party?
Yeah, the Kevin Nash
shenanigans parties
or something like that. So I mean, there's all kinds of stuff to do. I mean, if you're an independent wrestling fan, it's probably your number one week anyhow. Even though it's Mania weekend, I would think if you're an independent wrestling fan, you're going to see as much content that week as possible.
It's literally Tuesday to Tuesday, and there's, especially as we get closer to the weekend, it's going. There's a show at 11. There's a show at 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, at midnight. Like
there's
it's
shows
going
that are
all
on
day.
against Mania. There's shows that are on at the same time as Mania. I mean, they don't care that people are at Mania. They're still going to pack the house out.
Oh yeah.
Because, I mean, it's worth the investment for them to be down there because there's wrestling fans that just want to be in town to hang out that maybe can't afford to go to Mania. Well, I mean, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. I've never been to WrestleMania. I mean,
I'm the same way. I've been to almost everything else, Jared. Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam. This is going to be my second SummerSlam. We're going to our second Survivor Series. It's in Boston this year. I was at the first Backlash. I was at the very last Backlash before they renamed it to WrestleMania Backlash.
I love that name change, by the way.
WrestleMania Backlash. I don't think you need WrestleMania in it. We all knew it was called Backlash because it was a month after WrestleMania.
I just like it. It extends the WrestleMania season for a couple more weeks.
So guys. We got to put a bow on this. I mean, In Your House 3 has just started on my side. Obviously, Diesel went over in that, set up for SummerSlam 1995, where he would defend against Mabel, and almost get killed. So. Let's go around the room and get our final thoughts on this particular show. We will obviously start with our guest of honor, Jared.
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me. I don't know that I shared this. I think we talked about it earlier, but this was the first pay-per-view I ever ordered. This was the reason I picked this. They actually, Frank and the guys asked me what I would like to watch, and I picked the episode. It was the first ever pay-per-view I watched at my house with my mom. I remember getting the cable box. It was a big deal. And it just kind of spawned what has become a lifelong fandom for wrestling. I'd always been aware, but this was the pay-per-view that kicked it off and set forward into motion why I'm sitting right here at this computer talking with you guys. So I really appreciate you guys. I hope for most of you that you went back and actually watched it, because it is a really good pay-per-view for that era, and I think you get a lot out of it. So I really appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you.
Of course, absolutely. We loved having you, and I say this all the time. And Devin, you can attest to this because we said it at the end of yours that we would definitely want to have you back. And here's Devin today. So hopefully this is not the last time.
Sure, man.
Devin, buddy, what do you think of the show? Seeing you weren't alive yet, you son of a bitch.
Well, for one, I appreciate you bringing me back. This was fun again to be on, and it was nice to see this. This 2 years before my existence, like you said. My father, he was a huge Shawn Michaels fan, so he was about 15 years old during this show. So Shawn Michaels going over and winning the Intercontinental Championship, that's pretty cool to see.
Wait, I'm the same age as your goddamn father?
I guess so, Papa Frank.
What the fuck?
Oh my God!
Perfect time for that. Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah.
It was just fun. It was a good show. It's always fun to be back with you guys. It was nice to meet you today, Jared.
Yes, sir. You too.
It's fun to watch wrestling. It's always fun.
Of course it is.
No doubt.
Michael, buddy, your thought? Oh my God, it's Waylon Mercy. What did?
Well, I don't know how to follow that, Papa Frank, but I'll do my best.
Motherfucker, I swear to God.
but I'll do my best. Seriously, Jared, fantastic having you on. I always love, especially when it's somebody I don't talk to a lot. It's great to get to know you guys, get to know all of you more. That's why I love being a part of this. Watch some great wrestling that I hadn't seen before, because like I said, I wasn't born until a week after this, but I really had fun tonight. I'm in the middle of my from my personal life, I'm in the middle of my busy season at work. Always love and always will carve out 2 hours to do this because it's so much fun. Devin, great seeing you again. Look forward to working with you in the future. Frank, Phil, Brandy, this is always great, and I appreciate you guys letting me be part of this crazy ride. So excellent show, wonderful way to spend a Sunday night as we're recording this. So thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Miss Wagner, your thoughts?
I love going back to this era because this was like the peak of my fandom. I look back on this era very fondly. I was not as young as some of these fucks around here, but I was young. And what's crazy to me is this year at WrestleMania, I'll have been watching for 30 years. So that's crazy. But I enjoyed it. I mean, sure, some of it wasn't the best, but the matches themselves were really good. And of course, getting to see my Shawn, I'm always here for that.
Oh boy. Mr. Jackson.
I think for those of us that are into the weeds as far as wrestling fandom goes, the show remembered most for Double J and Rhodey's exit. And also him singing, With My Baby Tonight, which was definitely Jeff Jarrett and totally not Rhodey singing that song. For everyone else, this was, kind of just your regular everyday 90s pay-per-view, nothing great except for the Shawn Michaels Double J match, but nothing terrible except for anytime Mo was in the ring. But it's definitely worth a rewatch for nostalgia, and definitely check out Shawn Michaels and Double J. I dropped a little comment in our private chat here. I saw Double J do one of the best drop kicks I've ever seen in wrestling. And I'm not saying he can recreate that every time, but at least that one time he threw out a perfect drop kick. But check that match out if you don't watch anything else, and buy Double J's album.
You can find With My Baby Tonight on WWF The Music Volume 1 Full Metal, which I still have, and it was a yellow CD, and I used to listen to it every day on my paper route. But did you know Devin wasn't born yet? But his dad was the same age as me. Guys, this is I remember what I was doing for the show. I was heavy into the WWF. Being an Oilers fan back in '95 and them sucking as bad as they did. I mean, they drafted McNair that year. I didn't get to see many Oilers games. I think probably that year I don't think I got to see any of them. I just saw highlights. So, and I didn't. There was no Sunday ticket for me at the time, so I was heavy into wrestling. And this, as I always say on this show, hits me in the feels, because I was into it from top to bottom. Looking back at it, probably not the greatest characters out there. The fact that Henry Godwin lost a match by missing a knee drop is especially with what we see now. That was interesting. But Shawn Jarrett, top 10 match for me. And Jared, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your Sunday to hang with us. Devin, taking some time out of being a new fiance to hang out with us.
Oh, it's fun.
It's always a pleasure. I will look forward to seeing what WrestleMania has to offer. And with that being said, for the entire TGT crew, I thank you all for blowing us up on Twitter, or not Twitter, YouTube. We're getting some great views. We're getting some great subscribers, and I'm just so proud to be a part of this. So with that being said, everyone have a great night.
14 WrestleManias.
A leg drop, an elbow smash, a body slam.
Are you ready to fight? Who will survive?